Donald Trump, go pound sand or go suck eggs. Although, as I said, I now realize there's a tariff on sand and they may not be able to afford eggs.
You will not believe which government that attack on X that we talked about yesterday came from. It might make you reconsider where all of our foreign aid money goes. Also, Trump's team calls out the liberals again for grossly exploiting and manipulating this tariff situation for their own benefit. Doug Ford may have also made that 10 times worse, and Donald Trump himself has responded, and it is not looking good at all. I also don't like to do this, but genuinely, is Elizabeth May drunk all the time? I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment your thoughts down below. A couple of other little stories to get into today of what's going on in the country.
Madam Justice Hogue already identified the single greatest threat to our next election and democracy in Canada is disinformation coming from social media platforms, such as those controlled by Trump's billionaire oligarch friends.
Let's clear up this story before jumping into other news of the day. So the first thing we talked about in yesterday's episode was the DDoS attack on X, which, X has been under a lot of scrutiny lately with a lot of governments, including our own here in Canada, wanting to get it removed and shut down because misinformation and disinformation is the greatest threat to our democracy. And I mean, we all know that the only people who use misinformation and disinformation are people who are on platforms like X. Nowhere else. It's only X, right? And only people who have endorsed Trump. But here's the thing about online cyber attacks, which are very oftentimes created by either foreign governments wishing to interfere. That's very common. I know Saudi Arabia in the past has been a very big proponent of that. France was a big proponent of that ahead of Candace Owens' series Becoming Brigitte. And also from activist groups who will organize things like this. And it's not like you can just go and do stuff like this for free either. It costs money. So wait until you hear who it was that Elon Musk says the IP addresses linked back to now that the attack is over.
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
So he says the IP addresses from this cyber attack originated out of the Ukraine area, a place where both Canada and the US has sent a lot of money in foreign aid to help them. And so it's weird, if that's true, that they are using said money to mass organize an attack on a website. Now, either Elon Musk is lying, or perhaps Vladimir Zelensky didn't want people to see or have access to all of the information out there about him, which is on X, or maybe he didn't want people to see or have access to that video with JD Vance and Trump from last week. That was kind of embarrassing for him. So take that information as you will. Tensions amongst the US and Ukraine are not great right now. Could they have done something like this in order to kind of say, see, look at what we have and we're going to take down Elon Musk's site? I'm honestly just, as a whole, I don't understand this entire rhetoric around Elon Musk in particular. What is he doing that's so bad right now in the government? Okay, yeah, he has Doge. People say, oh, well, he's not elected. Well, that's not how that works. When you are, given presidency, you're able to appoint people. We have that as well in Canada. So I don't really understand that aspect. I will say just my own 2 cents on it. I think I've said this before, but I do think that there's probably some conflicts of interest in terms of Elon Musk working with the Trump administration. Having said that, Trump has also been very clear that he doesn't have access to absolutely everything. And when they think that there might be a conflict or something that Elon Musk shouldn't get involved in, they're not giving it to him to review. He's not involved in that at all.
If necessary, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely.
I don't know if there's anything I love more than following a developing and breaking news story and all of a sudden a bombshell drops and I'm in the middle of producing already and I get to share it with you right away. So earlier today, Doug Ford was on a number of very left-wing media outlets in the United States talking about shutting off the power to the states, talking about the tariff that he was going to put on. And before I get to the bombshell that just came out, let's just quickly go through some of Donald Trump's reactions to all of this, okay? Donald Trump made a number of tweets, all varying in length. I'll read you this one verbatim. It says, despite the fact that Canada is charging the USA from 250% to 390% tariffs on many of our farm products, Ontario just announced a 25% surcharge on electricity, of all things. And you're not even allowed to do that because our tariffs are reciprocal. We'll just get it all back on April 2nd. Canada is a tariff abuser and always has been, but the United States is not going to be subsidizing Canada any longer. We don't need your cars, we don't need your lumber, we don't need your energy, and very soon you will find that out. Make America great again. A few moments later, he posted again about Ontario in particular, and this one's much longer, so I'm not going to read all of it to you, but some of the highlights in here says, based on Ontario, Canada placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the United States, I have instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% tariff on all steel and aluminum coming into the United States from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world. This will go into effect tomorrow morning, March 12th. Yikes. He also said that Canada must immediately drop their anti-American farmer tariff of 250% to 390% on various U.S. dairy products. This has long been considered outrageous. He says that he's going to be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area, which will allow the U.S. to react swiftly from the abuse from Canada. I'm paraphrasing there. And then he goes on to say as well, the only thing that makes sense for Canada is to become our cherished 51st state. This would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear. Canadian taxes will be very substantially reduced. They will become more secure militarily and otherwise than ever before. There would no longer be a northern border problem, and the greatest, most powerful nation in the world will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever. And Canada will be a big part of that.
Conversations between the administration and the Canadians going on over this tariff, because the Ontario Premier says the next step is to cut off electricity to the U.S.
And the president put out a statement after seeing those comments and said that it would be there would be grave consequences imposed on Canada if they think about shutting off electricity for the United States of America and our citizens. And the president is also determined to ensure that we are depending on American electricity, not the electricity production of foreign nations, including our allies in Canada.
Mario, who has a couple different usernames online, Mario Saves Canada, Mario for the North, really lovely gentleman, by the way. He had posted this, and so this is kind of where I stand with it too. I still don't 100% think that Donald Trump actually wants to take over Canada. I think that his rhetoric with this has gone too far. Certainly, it's not very diplomatic. I don't like it at all, and it puts people in a really tough situation. And a lot of the things that Trump has been saying about Canada are not true when you consider the whole picture, which he hasn't been. And Mario says this. He says, "Hi, Donald, former fan. Economics lesson. A trade deficit doesn't mean that you subsidize Canada. In fact, when you remove the crude oil you buy from us for dirt cheap, you have a trade surplus. I'll explain it to you like a child. You sell more stuff to us than we sell to you, but you need our oil desperately. So that's why you think you subsidize us. What we do sell to you, you get at a discount. Using your logic, Canada subsidizes America." And this is where the biggest frustration of not having a functioning government throughout this period of time kind of comes into play, because I'm willing to bet, of course this is speculation, that if we had question periods, committees, all of that stuff as an example right now, I don't think that Canadians would be as in the dark about what's going on as we currently are. And instead, you have the liberal media saying Trump wants to take over Canada, and then you have the American media saying, no, we don't. This is literally only about the border issue.
So this is not just leverage to get a better free trade deal. This is not just because President Trump truly believes that tariffs are the heart of his economic policy.
Right.
You're saying this really is about fentanyl?
It really is about fentanyl. It really is. And I think the president obviously wants a strong economy, obviously wants better trade deals as well. Mm-hmm. But this is about fentanyl and what we can do to stop the cartels from partnering with Chinese officials, laundering money, and bringing a poison into our country that is specifically designed to kill the next generation. I think a lot of people don't understand the strategy of these enemies of the United States and what they're utilizing. They are bringing this in not just to make money. They're bringing it in here to kill Americans. And it's time that we stand up for the people that live here and make sure that we're stopping this war against our children.
But then there's some rhetoric saying to the contrary to that, and it's just been such a kerfuffled message. But at the end of the day, not having a functioning government during a time as Donald Trump said, economic warfare on Canada is unbelievable. It's actually unbelievable, arguably treasonous to be that selfish and to call an internal election where that's the only thing people are focusing on while there's this massive issue over here that nobody has announced a plan to fix in your government. Literally nobody. You have Mark Carney who's, oh, we're going to go and unleash this economy. Canada's not broken. If it wasn't broken, why would we need to unleash the economy? Wouldn't the economy be great if Canada wasn't broken?
They did use some strong language of Mr. Poilievre as well as Mr. Trump. Was that the right move?
Well, look, I mean, Mr. Poilievre, as I said in French, has spent the last 2 years telling Canadians that Canada is broken. I don't think that's the way Canadians feel about Canada right now.
But after a decade in power, Stephen Harper thinks it belongs to him. So now, this place is broken. Today, I'm presenting a real plan to fix it.
And just like that, Doug Ford, after going on TV in the United States on Democratic-leaning platforms for the last number of weeks now with this threat, and Donald Trump responding the way that he did, here's what Ford had to say just a few hours later and a few moments ago.
Well, just a little while ago, I had an opportunity to speak to Secretary Lutnick. And Secretary Lutnick has sent out an olive branch to us to come down and immediately meet with him, meet with the whole trade administration, and discuss the future. Rather than waiting till April the 2nd, threats going back and forth, tit for tat, I've agreed to suspend temporarily, and we always have that tool in our toolkit, until we sit down over the next day or two. I'll be heading down to Washington along with Dominic LeBlanc, and we'll have a good discussion. You know, with any negotiation that we have, there's a point that both parties are heated and the temperature needs to come down. And I thought this was the right decision. They understand how serious we are about the electricity and the tariffs, and rather than going back and forth and having threats to each other, we have both agreed, let cooler heads prevail. We need to sit down and move this forward. This is a massive, massive deal, the USMCA.
So that was a very rational, reasonable, highly diplomatic response. He's absolutely on the ball. It's been too much of like meh, 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 from all sides lately, which again is typically, and you could argue in this situation, a result of a non-existent government that is going to continue to be non-existent for Lord knows how much longer, especially if Mark Carney goes and calls an election, as many are speculating. This is exactly what needs to happen, and it puts me back into my frame of mind of a tariff war. That's not the end goal here. The end goal is to say, like, you got to step it up. You got to step it up. Everybody has to step it up, like Oprah Winfrey would.
Already Canada, and I respect very much. As you know, there's a very strong man in Canada who said he was going to charge a surcharge or a tariff on electricity coming into our country. He has called and he said he's not going to do that. Okay, he's not going to do that. And it would have been a very bad thing if he did. And he's not going to do that, so I respect that. But we were just informed that he's not going to do that. Look, we've been treated very unfairly by Canada. We've been treated very unfairly by Mexico. But we've been treated very unfairly by every country all over the world. The European Union is horrible, horrible. And we're going to get it back. And I have a choice. I could just coast, and eventually there'd be a blow-up down the road, maybe a long way. But we owe $36 trillion, and we're going to get it back. We're the biggest, we're the best, and I'm very optimistic. I have to tell you, I'm very optimistic about the country. Much more optimistic this way than if I did it the easy way. Yeah. I could have done it the easy way, I could have coasted. Biden left us a mess.
And to get some renewed negotiations on the table, because obviously there are things that Donald Trump is upset with. Yes, he's upset with a number of things with Canada and our government and our politics and the way that we have been. We're upset with the way that he is being right now. And what needs to happen is everybody needs to stop waving their thing around, and just sit down and figure out, what do you want? Here's what I want. Great. It doesn't appear as though any of that has really happened thus far. It seems like there's been an entire campaign around just defenestrating Donald Trump. And rather than coming to a solution, announcing your resignation, and then enabling your entire party to use Donald Trump as a way to attack Pierre Poilievre and to use Donald Trump as a way to get them elected and get them support. This is something that Donald Trump called out as well. He is very clearly tired of Canada's politics, and so are many of us. And it's honestly just laughable because if you rewind just a few months back, remember Justin Trudeau and the Liberals so routinely during question periods and during press conferences saying, "We are not going to play politics like Pierre Poilievre is." Have you not noticed the amount of politics they are playing on Donald Trump's name? Okay, got it.
We need to have a government that remains solid. Team Canada that can say to Donald Trump, go pound sand or go suck eggs. Although, as I said, I now realize there's a tariff on sand and they may not be able to afford eggs. Reminds me of his attitude towards women. He's a serial misogynist, sexual abuser, rapist. He's in the White House. What does he want to do? Take Greenland out to buy expensive furniture? Take Greenland into the dressing room? I'm sorry, every time I hear Trump saying he's going to get something one way or another of another sovereign nation, in my head I'm hearing, I just grab him by the... I wouldn't put it past Trump at all. I mean, we've seen Musk interfere in the German elections to support neo-Nazis. Okay, what's to say that Trump and Musk's ideas, well, let's just get some rage farming going and see if we can get a segment of Canadian society that likes the idea of a 51st state.
Big shout out to Brett for making that awesome compilation. Wow, that was a lot of brain rot to get to in a very short period of time. And hey, if all of the Liberal, NDP, and Green censorship laws that they are wanting to put forth, because, disinformation and misinformation are the greatest threat to our democracy, all of our brains might soon be like that. That is the epitome of what happens when you are in an echo chamber for far too long. Let's go ahead and fact check the latter half of that, though, because I have heard that rhetoric a number of times now, which is that Elon Musk has allegedly actively supported Germany's AfD party and also interfered in their election, which they just saw, I believe this was late February roughly, where they actually got 20.8% of the vote, making them the country's second strongest political force. And while, yes, Elon Musk has supported the party, any accusations whatsoever in terms of interference and influence within Germany's elections, there's actually no evidence to suggest that at all. There's zero evidence whatsoever. And yes, AfD is a far-right party. It would be pretty weird if they are, in fact, a neo party, that they are legally registered to participate in German elections, also have representatives in parliament, and use democratic institutions in order to push their policies. But alrighty then.
It is chaos. What Donald Trump is creating is chaos. He's also an economic arsonist.
I do not want those kinds of people being the ones to tell me what is true and what is not, and to have the control to censor my speech anywhere or regulate what platforms I am allowed to go on. at all. I want to wrap this up with some updates on Doug Ford and Donald Trump. And in response to Doug Ford coming to the table and wanting to work out a deal, which I'm quite sure is exactly what Trump has been wanting this entire time, he's just gone about it in a bizarre way. Trump did say, according at least to the senior trade advisor to Donald Trump, that he will not be imposing the 50% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum on March 12th, as he had threatened earlier this morning. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. What a wild ride it is being a Canadian today. And wow, if we have a people like Elizabeth May making their rounds, being viral on social media, speaking for us, yikes. That is embarrassing. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment your thoughts down below, and I will talk to you tomorrow.